Welcome to Dose of DN, where you'll get a little shot of what my life is like living with SMA. A big part of my life is having PCAs, and that's how I live independently. And I wanted to introduce you to one of my longtime PCAs, Christy. She's been with me for, I think we figured 14 years.
I think it was 14 years in June.
She I had applied for PCAs when I wanted to move in on my own, and to live on my own, I needed someone to be here overnight. And Christy had applied, and I liked that she had experience. I had
worked in a nursing home for 14 years, and a lot of probably the last 6 or 8 I had worked overnights.
And so I thought it would be a good fit for me that she had experience. And I found out that she's actually lives in the same neighborhood as my mom does. So we know a lot of people in common too. So
within a mile.
Yep, just down the road. So we know a lot of people, and so that helps get along and everything like that. When you first started working for me, you had to learn from my mom.
I did.
And what did you think about that? Because she'd been doing it my whole life.
It was different. She can do things that I can't, or I would not ever think of trying.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like it wouldn't work for me. It'd be dangerous.
It probably wouldn't be the most safe thing to do.
No. And I was not used to any of those ways because that's not how you learn when you learn in a nursing home.
Yeah, but we kind of figured out what works for us.
Yeah.
And my PCAs since then probably have learned from you and other PCAs, and then
True.
Mom gets, she's my backup, so if anyone gets stuck or they need help, then she can help me out. But I know you've worked with me for 14 years, so kind of what do you think the differences are between what I can do now versus what I could do then?
I would have to say probably the biggest thing that you have less use of would be your arms.
Yeah. And
most things you still can do pretty independently. You
I
used to be
probably a different way to do it.
Yeah, and you used to be able to put your arms up to the sink by yourself, which now you're not able to do that anymore. I would say probably the biggest change for that happened, how many years when you broke your arm?
That was probably 7 years ago. I broke my arm about 7 years ago. I was one way and my arm went the other, and I broke my elbow. I was in a cast for about 6 to 8 weeks, probably 8 weeks.
We had hoped for 6, and I think when you went for the checkup, they said, nah, a little bit longer.
Yeah, and that was even challenging, figuring out how to get me dressed and
how it was comfortable to be able to have your arm in a chair to sit during the day.
Yeah, so that was probably a big factor in my mobility. But I usually figure out how to navigate anyway.
You figured ways to make it work.
And Christy, like I said, is my overnight PCA. So my routine is when she comes, she helps get me ready for bed. And I have a hospital bed, so the head and foot can lower. And she uses a Hoyer lift to transfer. I know some people are small enough where they can be lifted, but a Hoyer, I think, is probably our best option.
Yeah.
And she's been with me through all my struggles of finding a good sling.
Slings are impossible.
And they discontinued the one that I like now. So we're going to have to go through that again.
Well, you did get one new one. Thankfully, I was not here to try it, but someone did, and it didn't work well.
Yeah, my mom tried my new sling, and it pushes on my head too much, and then I can't breathe very well. So I don't use that sling anymore.
Once and done.
Yep, and I just knew right away that, no, this is not going to work. So we're going to be on a quest to find a new sling again.
Hopefully one that works.
Yep. What else would people want to know? She also, after I'm in bed, she rolls me over like once at night. I know some people turn more often than that, but I've figured out where I'm comfortable. And so far I haven't gotten pressure sores or anything.
No,
knock on wood.
Never had one yet.
And then she also gets me up and ready in the morning. And about, 3.5 years ago?
Close.
I had gotten very sick, and it ended up landing me in the hospital. And that's when they figured out that my swallow muscles had deteriorated and causing aspiration pneumonia. But Christy's actually the one that...
Well, you went to the hospital for like 3 days or so. Went back to your mom's for a day.
It was over Easter, so I was at my mom's
Went there for
Easter.
a day or two and came back. Well, the first night that she was back, we got ready for bed and we got to bed and seemed like things were going to be all right. And she didn't feel well about 45 minutes into being in bed, so she wanted me to call for the ambulance, but not lights and sirens. It wasn't necessary.
It was in the spring, so the roads were kind of icy, and I knew I wanted to get to the hospital before my mom and dad could come in and bring me. And I was having difficulty breathing during transfers. So I decided the ambulance was the best route.
So I called them, and they came. But the people that were on it thought that since she'd been in the hospital, perhaps she should let the medicine work a little bit. I said, you're not understanding what we're saying. On the way going to bed, she had an episode of being transferred.
Breathe.
She couldn't breathe. She couldn't talk to me. She couldn't anything. I got her lowered right away, and then she got her breath and whatever. Well, I was worried a little about it myself, but she was more worried, and so then that is why we called them. Well, okay, so they decide they'll take her. Well, in the close quarters of the house, and not real easy for them to get their gurney and whatever in here, I get her up, and they're just standing around, and all of a sudden that happened where it cut her air off again. And I had to holler very not nicely at them and tell them to get their gurney there now. I needed to put her down because she's not breathing. Well, then they scrambled.
They figured it out.
Then they thought, oh, maybe she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
But then they argued a little with me after you were on it. They wanted to turn you on your back.
Me on my back, and that was the position that I couldn't breathe in. And so we insisted that I be on my side, and that worked. I did get to the hospital, but it's nice that a PCA that knows me and has been with me and can advocate for me when I can't. So I think that was really beneficial for me. And she stayed at the hospital until my parents came and made sure everything was okay.
Well, they asked me a lot of questions that I said, you'll have to wait until your parents get here. I can't.
Yeah.
Well, can you sign this? Well, no. Yeah. Her parents will take care of it when they get here. They know about her insurance and all the stuff. And
yeah. So, but that's when I found out that I needed a feeding tube.
That would I say would be the biggest next biggest
that
thing
that was
has
a
happened.
big change in my life when you go from eating 2-3 meals a day to getting all your nutrition through the liquid format.
Well, that and there had never been any medicine to speak of.
Yeah.
I mean, I opened a bottle of aspirins maybe a couple of times and
this is my kitty cat, by the way.
in like 10 years, you know.
Yeah, before that I had been on no medicine or anything like that, so.
No.
But we adjusted to the feeding tube, so she does my feeding tube in the morning as well. And she helps take care of my kitty and dog. She scoops up their food for me, and then I can feed Roy and
Feed the cat
and things like that. So, and really having a PCA has allowed me to remain independent for all of these years, and hopefully for many more. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't really know that there's been a lot of other changes, really.
And I mean, we just take what changes come, and
well, I guess we are going to do a new change tomorrow. We're going to try a different stuff in the feeding tube, a different formula.
Yeah, I've been on one formula for like 3 years, well, since the beginning, and it just doesn't really agree with me that well. So we've finally gotten around to hopefully finding a better formula that will work with me. Having SMA, it's harder to digest some foods, and I think the formula was bothersome in that regards too.
Well, it was bothersome in a few ways, but I think that it was pushing itself. You had to have that changed a little bit too often, more than you should have had in the last, four
Probably,
months.
It's been bothering me the last year.
But you've had it changed in the last 4 months, like twice.
And it still has.
And it's still
bothersome. So.
Bothersome. Sometimes it leaks a lot, and the next time it doesn't. And it's not supposed to leak at all.
No, I have Mickey. For those of you who want to know, and. Well, you remember when we started, I had that long tube.
Well, the first one that you came back with
wasn't just the standard.
It wasn't so bad, but then when they finally got around to changing it here,
they put in one that I call archaic. It didn't have a clamp. It was hard and uncomfortable. And just not good.
For those that don't, right where your seatbelt goes, that allows you to sit up in your chair, is right where the feeding tube is, so that goes across it. Well, if you don't have the right kind, that's not comfortable.
Yeah, so for those of you who do have feeding tubes, just advocate for yourself, and that's kind of what I did again. And I said, this isn't working for me. So then...
Well, it was best for you to go back to St. Cloud, which is a town an hour from here,
and they have
where they put one in the first place for you.
And they have a GI department, so I think that helped.
You got much better results there than the stuff they gave you here.
Yeah.
They put that one in and told her there was no other options.
Yeah.
So that didn't work well.
No, so... advocating for yourself and knowing what works for you is important in my book too.
Or if you're not able to advocate for yourself, have
someone
that
knows you who can. So anyway, thanks for talking with me and saying hi to everybody. And if anybody has any questions for my PCA Christy, or about how having a PCA helps your independent life, just let me know. Make a comment here on the forums or on Facebook. And that's all I have for you today, I guess. So bye for now.